It was a trip through one of those wildlife drive-through parks. My wife and I, our daughter, my grandkids, we were going through one of those wildlife preserves, and everything was going great. We were feeding animals and they were coming up to the car and we were seeing a lot of them. And it was a great trip and everything was going fine until an ostrich came up. Now, I'd heard enough about ostriches to know they can be a little aggressive. So we were very careful, explaining to everybody, don't hold any of the food pellets out in your hand, toss them out the window. And then realized we ought to roll the window up. But before we could, an ostrich came right up, stuck his head right in the car. Now, my grandson Jake was beside me in the passenger seat, and he's a quick thinker, and he got a plan. He thought, I'll grab a food pellet, peg the ostrich. He'll either jerk his head back to catch it, or it'll startle him, and he'll get his head out of the car. Great plan. Jake grabs the pellet, pegs it, great accuracy, hits the ostrich right between the eyes, and the pellet bounces right back in my lap. Let me just say that it's a lot funnier now than it was then. But eventually, ostrich got his head out, and he was a crazy ostrich. But you know what? I learned a little bit about life in Jesus that I needed to be reminded of. One thing is, good plans don't always work out. How many people, how many churches, how many businesses, how many even families, even 10 years ago were saying, let's do our Vision 2020. Catchy name, real cool. We'll make a plan for what we're going to do in 2020 and how things are going to be. And I would almost guarantee not a one of those plans worked out like anybody thought. Not just because of COVID, there's earthquakes and hurricanes, and boy, you can plan all you want to, and you just don't control things. Makes me glad that there's someone bigger than me that really is in charge, that I don't have to be responsible for anything. God is, because I can't control things. Second thing that I really need to be reminded of, people are messy because they're people. People are people. Sometimes people disappoint you, and sometimes people make bad choices, and sometimes there's consequences. Satan tempts, and sometimes we give in, and there's sin, and we all want people to be better. We want to be better, and people just don't do that sometimes. Sometimes a crazy ostrich is exactly what it is, a crazy ostrich. And people are people. You know who does change people, though? Jesus. Jesus changes people. Nothing else. Not a set of laws, not a bunch of public scoldings. Nothing changes people except Jesus, who can change hearts. And the other thing I learned is we were in a wildlife park. Well, not really. You had high game fences. The animals were separated. There was no danger. They were so conditioned to people driving up and holding food out the window. It was not anything like the real world. And I'm reminded that so much of what we think is real here is not. I hear people all the time talking about their legacy. The truth is 1,000 years from now, nobody's going to know who you were. And all the things you've worked so hard to establish and set up and work on, probably 100 years from now, are not going to be here. This world is pretty much an illusion. But you know what is real? God and Jesus and life forever. And sometimes I need to be reminded of what I learned from a crazy ostrich. Sometimes your plans don't work out. People are really messy, and this world is not my real home. I needed those lessons. Maybe they're helpful for you too.